League of Legends and bugs. It's hard to find a more iconic duo. Today we're gonna go through some of the best, the most game-breaking bugs that League has ever seen, all straight from the live servers. The bugs that broke the game, in many cases even literally, including an LCS game that just simply disappeared. League of Legends is a lovely game where a small AoE ability can suddenly turn into an exploit that hits everything on the map. Fun fact, did you know that in 2025 it is still possible to hit the entire map with one ability? Yes, seriously. But more on that bug later. I must say old League of Legends was fun. You wanted an invisible Baron? No problem, just need 2 people standing on the Baron place when he spawns. You wanted to completely remove the game? Sure, just pick Xerath and use your Q towards the bug of the fountain, and boom, the game is gone. Of course there were also more sophisticated exploits, like Azir spawning infinite turrets, thanks to Ashe being on his team. Cheaters playing Azir would hijack Ashe's Q toggle ability, and this way they were able to spawn turrets anywhere they wanted. Even many years later, some aspiring exploiters still attempted to continue this legendary Azir legacy. And also, let's not forget Viego, who was able to spawn the turrets himself after possessing Azir, but that's just because he is Viego. Viego has been involved in a lot of game-crushing exploits, but before we check them out, shout out to REDMAGIC for sponsoring this video. REDMAGIC Astra gaming tablet features the most powerful chip in an Android tablet, Snapdragon 8 Elite, as well as Redcore R3 Pro gaming chip. This tablet has over 9-inch full-screen OLED display with ultra-high resolution and vibrant colors, which makes it perfect for gaming or watching videos. It has 16:10 aspect ratio and over 90% screen-to-body ratio, as well as 165Hz refresh rate. Astra gaming tablet has 8200 mAh battery and features enhanced 13-layer IceX cooling system, perfect for uninterrupted gaming experience. It is available with various RAM and storage configurations, up to 24GB of RAM and 1TB of storage. The tablet is very light, it weighs only 370 grams. If you're looking for a powerful tablet, especially for gaming, be sure to click the link in the description below to check out REDMAGIC Astra gaming tablet. Back to Viego. That guy was always a master at crashing games. First, we had an exploit with Viego Senarel that made Viego auto attacks as well crash the game. Then we also had Viego as Ruined Karma, who was able to crash the game with Fiddlestick's effigy. And we also had untargetable Viego ruining the game by being able to kill everyone while being untouchable. There was also another Viego exploit that if you had 100% crit chance it possessed the enemy, the game would crash completely. This one even resulted in Viego being disabled from the game. The other Viego bug that got him disabled was of course the Dark Seal exploit, but we already covered that and other item exploits in a video a few weeks ago. But there was yet another game-breaking Viego exploit, and this one by far was the worst, as it was abused in ranked, mostly with Anivia as a teammate. When Viego used his E right near Anivia's W that was blocking a tight path, the game would crash and disappear completely. It was also doable with other champions like Talia or Trundle. Needless to say, it was absolutely broken in ranked, you just needed Viego and a champion creating terrain, and if ranked wasn't going as you planned, you just deleted the game. Perfect exploit to abuse. You know what's really funny about this exploit? 1 year later, we got very similar exploit that led to Bard being disabled. Turns out that using Bard E through player-made terrain like Anivia W or Trundle E also resulted in games crashing and completely disappearing. I mean, how can you not love League of Legends? In League of Legends, some champions are simply much broken than others, and Neeko is definitely on top of that list. She had a funny bug that allowed her to get ult at level 1 thanks to disguising as Udyr. In League of Legends, however, that's just a minor bug, contrary to the game-breaking Neeko exploit that we got at the end of 2022, that allowed exploiters to win ranked games solo in 3 or 4 minutes. It turns out that being able to change your form into a fountain turret is a pretty powerful strategy. It allowed Neeko to pretty much one-shot anything she wanted. And on top of that, it looked absolutely hilarious. But some of you may think that game-breaking bugs are so rare, they don't really happen in pro play. But in 2018, we had a gameplay bug that literally crushed the entire pro play game in a match between EchoFox and Clutch Gaming. That game just disappeared. It took us hours to reproduce that bug. It turned out most of Talia and Karthus' abilities were coded as minions, and games that had jungle Karthus or jungle Talia, or even worse both, had a chance of them completely crashing and disappearing. As Riot Nullarbor has explained, there was a resource leak that accumulated over time on Talia and Karthus in the jungle that made this bug possible. Fortunately for EchoFox, they were basically given a win because of how far ahead they were. When we're talking about crushing the game, we have to mention the exploit that just completely ruined ranked for a day, and one of the worst of all time, and it was the famous dog exploit. Exploiters would write a specific message in chat, and everyone who saw that message would have their game crash. Exploiters often told their allies to disable the chat, so only enemies would get disconnected. And the best part about it was, enemies weren't able to reconnect back to the game, because that message would be constantly loading on their end. You may be thinking that if you want to play ranked in League, you have to play 5v5. Sorry to say, but this is not true. Flashback to 2022, when exploiters found a way to play ranked 6v4. And I don't mean it metaphorically, I mean it literally, 6v4. The replays of such games never worked, and they were well disguised as a 5v5 from the outside, but fortunately thanks to POV recordings, we had a living proof of that exploit. But let's go back to some absurd champion exploits. The exploit you can see right now allowed Rek'Sai to one-shot pretty much every champion or every monster. Because Rek'Sai tunnels drop tunnel HP to 0 on use, exploiters somehow found a way to make champions and monsters be treated like a Rek'Sai tunnel. So they would drop their health with this exploit and then just deal the killing blow with auto attack or smite. Of course, in this video we cannot forget about Tahm Kench. In 2020, Tahm Kench had a hilarious exploit with his Devour ability, which at the time was Tahm Kench W. He was able to use it globally. Your ally ganked in the other lane and dying? No problem. Quickly hit him to save his life. It was easily doable without any external software. 3 years later, in 2023, we had a much worse Tahm Kench W exploit, allowing him to pretty much teleport anywhere he wanted on the map. It was completely game-breaking. It's pretty funny how Riot changed his W, but it became a different major exploit anyway. But this time it was absolutely insane. Some people even played more than 50 Tahm Kench games with this exploit. It was especially fun for Kayn players, who were able to get the ride of their lives. Not often you see a game-breaking bug being abused for an entire week, but that's what happened in this case. Tahm Kench exploit resulted in hundreds of compromised games. And as a bonus, we also got the fastest death ever, due to being able to teleport to the enemy base pretty much instantly. In 2023, we also had a crazy Taric Rel exploit. Interaction between Rel E and Taric W allowed both of them to stack armor pretty much infinitely. Because of Taric passive and his abilities scaling with his armor, he was able to one-shot whatever he wanted. Although this exploit wasn't the most popular, it had been abused in ranked for many days. Now let's look at possibly the most game-breaking type of exploit in League of Legends, the one where simple AoE abilities were able to hit everything on the map. First, let's go back to 2017. This is when exploiters found a way to use Xerath Q globally. Just standing still in base and using Q to pretty much hit the entire map. Needless to say, it was absolutely game-breaking, but this was just the teaser of what was about to happen 3 years later. Year 2020 started with a horrible Kayn W exploit. All you needed to abuse it was to move somewhere, adjust your cursor slightly, and depending on your skill and luck, your W was able to hit a big part of the map. It was horrible. Riot managed to fix it, but then 3 months later this bug came back, but with double the power. This time it was possible to hit the entire map easily. It was heavily abused, although it seemed like Riot got it fixed fairly quickly. But this was just the beginning. The same patch, few days later, we got the iconic Poppy exploit. It got popular extremely fast, one of the most game-breaking bugs of all time, that a lot of people had a pleasure to experience. Out of nowhere, Poppy players started getting 100, 300 or even 500 kills per game. Like here, 510 kills in only 15 minutes of a ranked game. I don't think this record is ever going to be beaten. It was possible thanks to the interaction with Hex Flash. Just Hex Flash in base in the right spot and spam your Q ability. What was absolutely hilarious about this exploit is that Riot systems didn't have any issue with players going 100 or 300 kills in 10 minutes. And exploiters even did it for many games in a row. But on the other side, some people from the enemy team, like here going 0-22-0 against Poppy with 100 kills, got banned for intentional feeding. It was absolute comedy, and it still makes me laugh to this day. Many people may not remember, but Poppy exploit wasn't limited to just Poppy. Kayn of course was able to do it again. Here you can also see Illaoi abusing this bug. Taric, Sejuani, Qiyana or Senna were also able to abuse this, but fortunately they didn't gain much popularity before Riot has successfully fixed this bug for good. Or did they? At the beginning of the video I mentioned an ability that could hit globally in 2025. And let me show it to you. This is possible on Seraphine, or to be more precise, on Mel who's playing against Seraphine. There is a rare bug that seems to happen against empowered Seraphine abilities. When Mel W reflects empowered Seraphine Q or empowered Seraphine E, there is a chance Mel will be able to hit everything on the map. In this clip, Mel just got 2 CS from other lanes, while here she even got a kill by sniping Jax on the other side of the map. I've seen this bug a few times this year, and honestly it gave me crazy flashbacks. In 2025, we also had a hilarious rumble bug with Triumph that allowed him to spawn as many Rift Heralds as he wanted, but fortunately it was a rather niche exploit. I definitely missed some game-breaking bugs in this video, so let me know in the comments what is your favorite game-breaking bug or exploit in League history. Thanks for watching, cheers!